shoots it back out on top. Both teams having trouble now with the footing on this field. And now coming in head on in the darkness here at UMBC. And we want to bring up the weather because that's exactly what the players are confronted with.
It's a key factor. Jody, it gets so dark that we have to call the game before conclusion. What do? Come back tomorrow morning and play it? Or
well, I feel like I'm afraid we wouldn't call it. You just have to play it. It's really only 6:15. And I think if we just have a little break in the shower, we'll be okay. I think it's probably a little bit lighter down the field than we think.
All right, here's a long shot propelled by Sharretts, and going to his knees was Karatzis, and as it rolls along the near sidelines, Boys Latin is forced out of bounds, and it goes across the end line, and St. Paul's are the benefactors, and we're going to try to traverse now the length of the field, and much to the chagrin of some of the loyalists here on the Boys Latin side of the field. And now, just off of the right side, I'll tell you, I not only like the offense, but also the defensive efforts put up so far by St. Paul.
Oh, yeah. St. Paul's looks good. Both ends of the field. They got a nice team. They're rolling along, doing exactly what they came out here to do today. Just play a sound game, their game, the explosive game. Whiteley's doing all this scoring and help. The same guys. Great day for St. Paul's so far.
Karatzis went all the way out shy of the midfield line, and he is plastered to the turf for his efforts. And the physical intensity starting to pick up here as the clock is winding down. We've got 8:16 left in regulation time with the MSA Conference Championship at stake. We ought to mention the last time these two teams met, it was a 7-4 lead for St. Paul's late in the game, and Boys Latin came back at them. All right, now breaking in, head on for St. Paul's is Skornovaca, and he lets fly, and it's blocked, and back out on top now. Picked up by Jeff Pacey. Pacey with that 7 on his uniform throws it off now for Rouse. And now Bouse in the white St. Paul uniform against the maroon-clad Lakers out of Boys Latin. It's a pleasure to bring you the game, the MSA Conference Championship over WERQ, 10:10 a.m. Back out on top and all alone, but not able to handle the pass. Russell Crofton rolls out toward midfield, and it's picked up once again by Pacey. So the quickness continuing here, even though the field is rather choppy, the rain is still coming down. And now it's played head on. And here's Michael Watson, the junior. He'll be back next year. He goes at it against the defensive efforts of Matt Ryan. And a wrap by the taller Ryan, but somehow the elusive Watson's able to keep it, and he flings it goalward, falls into the goal mouth area, and it'll turn right back for Boys Latin.
Michael Watson unable to dodge Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's one of the best defensemen around. He'll be playing at North Carolina next year, but Michael tried, he did everything he could, couldn't score on him, and then fell in the crease. So this is going to be Boys Latin's ball. Boys Latin trailing here 8-5.
It was a great defensive play by Matt Ryan, who's headed for North Carolina on Michael Watson's inside roll.
All right, now it's attempted clear on the part of the Lakers. Bassford with some nifty footwork. So the Lakers have got to get it cracking now. They've got the clock against them and a good quick acceleration. And here comes Badnitz racing in, and he's head on the nets. And his back feed and a shot. But prior to the shot, we're going to have a whistle and infraction being called.
Referee, it's that Ted Skokas out there, Jody?
So they're discussing right now what could be a call, but whichever way the call will benefit.
Be Boys Latin's ball.
Will benefit Boys Latin as they will have possession.
They have 7 minutes and 3 seconds remaining in regulation time. We're in the fourth period, of course, and St. Paul's is leading 8-5.
J.S. Edwards Menswear. I tell you, they are some people and terrific people to deal with. They're located in the festival at the Woodhome Center, just a half-mile north of Beltway, exit 20, on Reisterstown Road. And they got the Burberry suits. They got it all at J.S. Edwards. And, of course, we'll be on the air tomorrow at 11:30 with the Maryland-Princeton game, and then 7:30 right back at them with the Towson Johns Hopkins University game from Minnigan Stadium. Right off of the right side, trying to back dodge in. Plenty of time left, 6:43, but falling down on the wet surface, Boys Latin, and they lose the ball, but a steal is made, and nobody's out on top. So Boys Latin's got it again from behind. Here's Lower. He takes it out on top, and he flings it goalward, and it nets Boys Latin possession once again. And, Bill, they're going to have to take advantage of these opportunities around Karatzis if they hope to put an end to St. Paul's 18-game winning streak this year. And, of course, even longer than that if we count last season.
Well, Lauer came up with the ball behind the goal and looked out front. There was nobody to feed to. By the time he had got somebody back in a shooting position, St. Paul's defense was back in.
Kevin Bryan isolated now behind the St. Paul goal. Worked over by Pat Doyle. Bryan, a quick burst, a spinning bounce shot, and he scores. What a play made by Bryan, who bounced it over the right shoulder of Karatzis, screened by the defenseman. And it's now an 8-6 game. Only a 2-goal lead. And now it's getting there.
Turn and shoot, Howard. Excuse me. Kevin Bryan drove left-handed. He's really a right-hander. Drove left-handed, then turned and put the stick in his right hand and shot a high bouncer that skimmed up above Karatzis' right ear. It's a tremendous shot by Bryan.
Well, some of the umbrellas are starting to close around us, and that must mean that it has stopped raining, but it is a wet field and is a factor, and now it's only a 2-goal advantage. And remember, the last time these teams met, it was the late finish on the part of Boys Latin that nearly netted a tie to send it in overtime.
Boys Latin came back at him at the end and almost tied in the last second.
All right, Karatzis now, as the ball is played back to the St. Paul end of the field. Now St. Paul's is going to try to clear, and Karatzis has got it. 8-6, St. Paul's is leading in this one, and Karatzis threw it away. And that time it was an unforced error. Karatzis, who has played so well, as has Bassford in this one, a low-scoring game, 8-6. And you got to credit the goaltending and the defense, because these are two prolific offenses.
Nevertheless, Karatzis throws it away on the clear, and Boys Latin gets possession. They're ready to attack again, and they only trail by 2 goals at 8-6.
So a goal here, and you're really going to hear some noise from the enthusiastic crowd, not only for Boys Latin, but St. Paul's for the MSA Conference Championship. 5:44 left, regulation time, and a defensive effort's put up by St. Paul. The ball is loose off of the left side. Bodies flying, all the action head on the St. Paul's goal. There's a wild scramble, and finally St. Paul's picks it up. Skornovac has made a fine play, and he flung it out to the midfield line. And now, vicious checks now. We got a whistle and a call coming up. And that time, Boys Latin will be penalized. A little bit of over-aggressiveness, overzealousness on the part of the Crusaders. And they call it a pushing foul, and it's going to now net Boys Latin the ball. Down 8-6, 5:24 left in this one. 18 straight victories for the Crusaders, and they want to make it a perfect season.
Scott Bednaz of Boys Latin was contesting for a loose ball out there. Was pushed from behind. The technical foul called, and here comes Boys Latin with possession. Bringing it in right from the center line from midfield. 5:34 left in the game, and it's 8-6 in favor of St. Paul's.
Boys Latin, the man-up advantage, are setting up in a 3-3 situation.
All right, here's Bryan, and Bryan shoots it off to the left side, takes a return feed. The crowd really trying to exhort the Lakers on, or perhaps trying to scream for the defense. There's a hard shot and a score! Boys Latin's Laverghetta drills it from 7 off of the right side, beating Karatzis high, and it's now 8-7. The Lakers storming right back at them.
Now,
It was Andy Sharitz, wasn't it? Who was it?
No, that was Laverghetta who drilled it.
the right side, Mark Laverghetta. Now, I think as we look down here, we got to watch the face-offs. That's going to be a very important statistic and ball control situation as we finish this game.
Bobby Schreiber now leaning down in front of the Boys Latin bench, along with Quint Kesenick and Steve Doom and John Ciccarone on the all-important face on this wet, natural grass surface. And we get a pushing call against Boys Latin. And now St. Paul's highly explosive offense, 8-7, 5:09 left. What a game we have here at UMBC. And now the defense for Boys Latin put to the test against the most potent offense in the Maryland Scholastic Association. 18 straight victories. And now the white-clad Crusaders going against what many considered an underdog Boys Latin team. 12-1 record, 30-1 cumulatively for the two very best teams in the state. And now under a full head of steam. And here's Tim Whiteley, the C. Mark Kelly Award winner, and he's garnered 3. And now in the dampness and the darkness, he throws it head on, and it's intercepted. And now here's Boys Latin, still shy of the midfield line. And a spinning move and racing over the midfield line. Here comes Matt Prout. And now Boys Latin a chance to get the equalizer. And Boys Latin's got it at the restraining line head on, and Badnet's now midway, restraining line in midfield. Listening to Bobby Schreiber now giving his instructions. Cord of defenders surrounding Karatzis. Momentum certainly in favor of Boys Latin. Restraining line off of the right side. This is Sharretts. Sharretts does a 360. He walks in, gets too close, wisely gives it up from behind, back out on top, doing a face, head on. This is Bryant. Shot, score! Bryant guns from 7, head on, and Boys Latin overcoming an 8-4 deficit, and we are deadlocked at 8.
Boys Latin has scored 4 straight unanswered goals. They tied the game. They never gave up. So now it's an even game with 3:57 on the clock, Howard. Again, the face-off right here is very important to both teams. It's a great left-handed shot by Kevin Brown. Bounce shot to Carrasses' thick side. Boys Latin, good character. They should go back in this thing.
The Boys Latin trailed by 3 goals in the second quarter and by 4 goals in the third. Now with 3.5, well, almost 4 minutes left, it's all tied at 8-8.
All right, St. Paul's now winning the all-important face-off. Undefeated, 18 in a row. We're deadlocked right now, and what a fine job Ben Strutt has done with that 26 emblazoned on that white uniform for the Crusaders. The defending MSA Conference champions, suddenly feeling the wrath of the Boys Latin team, turned on with 4 straight goals, refusing to wilt the adverse weather, the big crowd on hand. And now roaming from behind, here comes St. Paul, and they got to stop the best offense in the league. And a shot at it's deflected. Boys Latin picks it up head on. And now here's Brian, and he spins clear of a triumvirate of St. Paul defenders. And he triggers it over the midfield line. And now Boys Latin playing it in front of their own bench. Suddenly looking quick. And Laverguetta's got it. And Laverguetta away from Strutt. And now Boys Latin, an opportunity to take the lead in this one. 2:53 remaining. We are deadlocked at 8 apiece. Howard Nash along with Bill Tam and Jody Martin. Working off of the right side. This is Laverguetta. His shot, he's dumped and sent tumbling hard into the goal mouth. And it's going to turn right back, and Laverguetta slow to get up.
I think he's hurt.
And he is in the swamp as it is muddy.
Right,
head on, and he is in some type of pain. I don't believe that he banged into the goalpost, but I think he was just crunched to the turf.
One thing he may be is exhausted.
He is conscious. We do want to mention that in this high school championship game. He isn't lying on his back, but he is conscious. He's being administered to right now by the trainer, Jimmy Talbot. We've got 2:41 left. It's 8-8, 4 straight goals, propelling Boys Latin. Valley, single family and townhouses, and they've got Cedarside at Perry Hall, townhouses and starter homes, and Perry Brook at the Silver Ridge and Perry Hall. Terrific people to do business with. Proud to be a sponsor of MSA Lacrosse. They give back to the community with quality, and you could have confidence in the Strutt Group.
So Laverguetta comes out of the game, walks off the field, got his helmet on, looks like he's going to come. Well, he left the field, but it looks like he's going to come back into the ball game in a moment.
2:38 and counting now. St. Paul's working at it against the tight ride on the part of Boys Latin. Carrasses has got it in front of his soaked goal. I tell you, bounce shots are going to be impossible, and he's skating head on his own net. Good clear on the part of St. Paul, and they triggered over the midfield line. And the Crusaders, the defending MSA Conference champions, and they got it head on now. Top of the box in midfield. It's played back now to what was a white-clad uniform, but now caked in mud. Joe Gelbard, certainly one of the stars, along with Tim Whiteley and Watson, Michael Watson, and then at Minder Carrasses. And we're deadlocked at 8 apiece. What a gritty performance, a come-from-behind effort by Boys Latin. Deadlock, pass comes off to the right side. St. Paul sitting on it, 1:54 and counting. Corner defenders surrounding Bassford. Bassford and a skating move as they're slipping and sliding here at UMBC. And now we've got a warding off call against St. Paul's. A big-time call coming at a key time in this one. And the footing, Bill, has certainly been a detriment to both of these ball clubs.
So St. Paul's went out of the box on that play, right, Joe?
In college and high school, when there's 2 minutes to go, it's a tie game where the winning team has the ball. If you step out of the offensive box, the ball is over to the other team.
Last 2 minutes of the game only, and that's where we are, 1:41 left.
St. Paul steals the ball, a big-time play, breaking out, a head-on shot, a score for St. Paul. What a play, and credit Michael Watson taking what basically was a headman feed, Propelled by Rob Bouse, Watson in stride. Bassford had no shot, and St. Paul regains the lead at 9-8. And that was set up by the double-teaming, swarming defense against Boys Latin. They stole the ball. Watson had the foresight to break in behind the pack. Bouse fed him with a perfect feed, and he rifled it over the left shoulder of Bassford. 9-8 Crusaders.
Where was the defense on that play, Jody Martin?
It was a ground ball to wing, and then they, of course, their speed, they just got ahead of the defense. It ended up to be a layup. But it was all hustling play on the part of their attack, and it's been all game.
All right, out on the important face-off now, and Boys Latin is able to corral it. If we go into overtime, it'll be sudden death. And now Bryant sheds an attempted check, and now Boys Latin, obviously, this possession magnified. 9-8, 120 and counting, regulation time, MSA Conference Championship at stake. The underdog, Boys Latin, Lakers, losers by 1 goal the first time these two teams met. And now down by 1 and just off of the right side, trying to do a spinning move is Lavaghetto. He's doubled up, triple team. St. Paul Strutt steals the ball. He throws it length of field. Bassford is out of the net, and with a nifty pickup on this tough surface, credit Bassford. And it's rifled shy of midfield now, and St. Paul with a steal. 47 seconds remaining, and now St. Paul's got it. Bouse, and a timeout is called. So St. Paul obviously in the catbird seat for the moment. And when we come back to the action, they'll have it in front of the Boys Latin bench, shy of the midfield line. 9-8, 45 seconds remaining in the rain and the darkness here at UMBC for the MSA Conference Championship. But Bill Tan, what a job Boys Latin did to come back in this one after being down 8-4.
Well, BL dug a couple of holes for itself today. But, you know, the other side of the coin is that both times St. Paul's outplayed them and developed big leads. St. Paul's led by 4-1 in the second quarter. Then Boys Latin came back and at 4-3 at halftime. And in the third quarter, St. Paul's Whiteley pumped in a couple in the third quarter and put St. Paul's ahead 8-4. So twice Boys Latin has been way in the hole, and both times St. Paul saw that the lead dissipate, because we were at 8-8 until Michael Watson, with 1:34 to go, and we're now at 45 seconds left in the game. Michael Watson, with 1:34 to go, took a feed from Rob Bouse and scored to put St. Paul's ahead 9-8. It's 9-8. We're inside a minute, final minute of regulation time. St. Paul's trying to repeat the championship it won last year, and beating St. Mary's High School of Annapolis today. They lead Boys Latin with 45 seconds to go. The score 9-8, and St. Paul's has the ball at midfield. They're trying to clear and get it up on the offense.
45 seconds remaining. We come back to the action, brought to you in part by Lax World at the Kenilworth Mall, and Watson is dumped to the turf. And Boys Latin is going for this elusive ground ball. The action in midfield, and it's picked up by Boys Latin with a steal, and now a timeout, and suddenly and dramatically a turn of events gives a ray of hope to Boys Latin. And when we come back to the action, Boys Latin will have the ball. Only 37 seconds left in regulation time, but an opportunity to go at it against Karatzis. And credit the swarming defense on the part of the Lakers. And Bobby Shriver put together a fine defensive pattern play in order to gain possession for Boys Latin. I want to remind you, fans, we'll be on the air tomorrow at 11:30 with the Maryland-Princeton game from Palmer Stadium in Princeton, New Jersey. And then we'll be heading back to Baltimore as Towson will provide the opposition against Johns Hopkins University. 7:30, 8 o'clock for the opening face-off.
Well, St. Paul's defeated Boys Latin by 1 goal during the regular season, and we're now in the championship game, championship of the Maryland Scholastic A Conference. And this is the A division, the A Conference, the big championship in the MSA. But 37 seconds to play. Boys Latin again trailing St. Paul's by 1 goal. The score 9-8. And Tommy Karatzis, the goalie for St. Paul's, is sloshing around in the mud as he gets set for Boys Latin to put the ball in play. BL with the ball at midfield. 37 seconds to go. And here we go, and here's Howard.
All right, Kevin Byron has got it now. We're back to the action. Brian with a bull, try to split the defense. A steal by St. Paul's, and they're slipping and sliding all over the place. And now a fickle old man Mo shines on St. Paul's, as trying to bull through was Brian against a double team. He had it knocked off his stick. St. Paul picks up the ball, and St. Paul's will have it following this timeout called by Mitch Whiteley.
Mitch Whiteley. As soon as he got the ball, Mitch Whiteley called the timeout.
Today's game, fans, brought to you in part by Northwest Honda, located at 9700 Reisterstown Road, 2 miles north of Beltway exit 20. They're open Monday through Friday from 9 to 9, on Saturdays from 9 to 6. They have the best in sales, service. They have a large inventory, certainly have courteous salesmen, and you can get used cars also in Northwest Honda. They've got the Honda Civic, the Accord, and the Prelude. They're proud to be a leader in supporting high school sports throughout Baltimore and the state of Maryland, wishing Boys Latin and St. Paul's the very best in today's championship. Northwest Honda, quality people and courteous people, the type of people you want to buy a car from. Northwest Honda, 9700 Reisterstown Road, 2 miles north of Beltway exit 20.
Well, we have 31 seconds left here. Championship game. St. Paul's with the ball and leading Boys Latin 9-8, and here we go.
All right, Watson's got it to midfield. A wraparound dislodges it. The ball's loose on the wet surface, and it's flicked in the direction of the Boys Latin net, and it's picked up by St. Paul's. Clock winding down, 19 seconds remaining. All the action is behind the nets, and they're tripling up on Whiteley, and Whiteley wisely throws it along the far sidelines with 13 seconds left. It's sent out of bounds in one last gasp, as the ball will be inbounded from the left of his own net with 13 seconds left for Boys Latin. And he's going to fling it the length of the field, as is Roskovich. It takes a big hop, loose in the goal mouth area, head on Karatzis, 6 seconds remaining. Boys Latin picks it up. Overrunning the ball is Brian. St. Paul throws to midfield, and that's it. St. Paul's wins their second consecutive MSA Conference Championship. Jubilation reigns supreme as St. Paul jump it all over one another at the midfield line right now. 19 straight victories, completing a perfect season for head coach Mitch Whiteley and his assistants Vince Bagley Jr., Jay Bond, Bricado, and Lousam. And the final score in this one, 9-8 in favor of the defending champions, St. Paul's.
So St. Paul's has won 2 titles in a row. Did it both times right here at UMBC, beating St. Mary's last year by a goal and beating Boys Latin today by 1 goal at 9-8. They've been doing that all year, St. Paul's. And, I said before the game, they can't go on forever winning 1-goal games. Well, they did. They won the big one today, and the deciding goal was scored by Michael Watson of St. Paul's, breaking an 8-8 tie with 1:34 to go. Watson, who had 3 goals for the day, as did Timmy Whiteley. Watson scored the game winner on a feed from Baus. So the final score, 9-8. St. Paul's, as Howard said, jubilant, jumping on each other. They're now back up on their feet, and they're still high-fiving and hugging, and they're a very happy team. They have every right to have. They've had a wonderful season, a perfect undefeated season, which they did not have last year. Last year they lost some games during the season, but they won during the playoffs. This year they won all the way. And what a job St. Paul's has done. You can only take your hat off to them. And twice this year, Bob Shriver and Boys Latin lost by a single goal to St. Paul's, the only blemishes on Boys Latin's record. So it's pretty obvious the #1 team this year is St. Paul's, and very close, nipping at its heels, is Boys Latin.
And today's game was brought to you in part by the Watson's Garden Center. Have you ever wondered why so many people shop for their